Okay, yeah. So welcome to the Friday call. One of the wins I should have mentioned was that this week I did two round tables. One of them's up on YouTube, and the other one will be up soon with colleagues around this question of how do we create space in our business? Raise your hand if you feel totally overwhelmed often in your business. Anyone? Okay, yeah, most of us. There's just so much going on. And so we were talking a lot about tactics on how do you create more room, like time blocking and setting boundaries and all this. But something came to me as I was writing the newsletter that I wanted to share that's not in those videos, but will be in tomorrow's newsletter. But I thought this might be uh, useful for you all here. Is okay, so this is this new model that I've been developing. I had the five fundamentals, but now it's these seven fundamentals. By the way, feel free to take photos and share this on Instagram. Go right ahead. Um, but so you can see at the foundation there's space, right? This is the basis of the whole thing. If you don't have room in your life, nothing happens. If you don't have room in your life, there's just no movement. There's nothing. So we need to start with a space, and that's what the whole meantime semester is about. That's probably why a lot of you joined, right? Is okay, I want to hit the reset button. I want to create more room in my life, more spaciousness. That's true. But what I think gets missed is how it's a bit of a feedback loop that I mean, we've all had this experience, right? You tidy your space, and by the end of the day, it's a mess again. Within a week, it's a disaster zone, and you think, how could this happen? I just cleaned it. So it's very easy to hit the reset button, but then need to hit it again and need to hit it again and again, which is expensive to do. So I wanted to go through briefly the pyramid and point out how each of these levels is connected with creating space because it's not i- immediately obvious on the surface, but I think once I point it out, you're going to see that the we start with enough space. And the purpose of the other six steps is to make sure that that space remains, not to cannibalize the space, not to swarm it. So, with ethics, if you um, don't take care of the ethics, there's a kind of spaciousness you lose, which is a psychic spaciousness, because you're doing something wrong all the time. And so you're hounded. It's this internal voice that never lets you rest. It's very hard to sleep if we're behaving unethically. Some of you may have had that experience. You did, like me, you did some of the pushy, aggressive marketing stuff. You did something it was just against your conscience, and your conscience would not let you rest with it. So there's that. But also, if you behave unethically, that means bridges are going to be burned, which means you have to work much harder. And then where did your space go? So, like over the long term, when people don't behave ethically, they have to work much harder because they don't have a good reputation. So the space is gone. Then with niche, what do you think happens to the space in your days when you're trying to be everything to everybody? You see how your space is immediately gone just on that one. And this happens all the time. People can't understand why they're so busy, but what's happening is they're trying to be everything to everybody, and that's a lot of work. So they're coming up with offers, A, that aren't getting much of a response. Um, Nobody's really paying attention to them anyways because they don't see the relevance, and et cetera, et cetera. The broad niche just means you have to work a lot harder to even get a client. And point of view. Well, point of view is partly there's an intellectual spaciousness that comes with this because your ideas are clear, but also your business model will be based in part on your offers will be based on your point of view. So if the point of view isn't clear, it makes it much harder to craft and structure your offers and figure out how they fit together. It's also much harder to get clients without a clear point of view. So again, you have to work harder. I mean, and literally more hours of time to get the same client. So then there's your space gone again. If you stand up in front of people and you confuse them versus you stand up in front of people and by the end they say, wow, that makes so much sense. That's a very different reality that you're going to be living in. If you stand up in front of people and they say, yeah, that kind of makes sense, and maybe some of them just like you and the problem hurts enough they're going to book with you. But if you can stand up in front of people and blow people's minds with clarity, show them a context they've never seen before, which I would submit you're probably all capable of, with the right niche. If you do that, everything is so much, when it gets to the pitch, the pitch is very light, not a lot of time, not a lot of effort. Then business model. Oh man, I mean, this is the great space cannibalizer. You could have all of this correct. You got a lot of space. Everything's really ethical. Got a really clear niche, a very clear point of view, but then you structure your business in a way that eats all of your time. You see what I'm saying? It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to charge $25 per session and do one-on-one sessions. Well, how many one-on-one sessions at that price do you need to do to pay the bill? So that's an extreme example, but it's not uncommon for people to have a business structured in such a way that it's just never going to work. They're not charging enough. They haven't thought through the way that things fit together. Like, for example, they might have a cool starter kit, but it doesn't invite people or lead people to anything. They do a signature workshop, but then they never mention their other stuff. All of these are structural business model considerations. The other place that people's time and space gets completely gobbled up is uh, in reactivity because they don't have systems. Part of business model is the internal systems in your business. And so it's the classic thing, hey, my event's 3 weeks out, nobody signed up, what do I do? Well, you probably cancel the event and then build a system so that from 6 months out, step by step, you're doing stuff. The other place you lose space with the business model is not just the launch things, like how do I launch an offer, but also the maintenance systems. Most of business is just taking care of business, maintenance, the day-to-day, checking emails, all this. But if you don't have a system to make sure you're doing the maintenance on the machine will break down and then all of your space is gone at once. Like, let's just imagine, for example, you're not taking care of your website and then one day your website gets hacked and it's gone. It's just like a black hole of sucking all of your time and space to deal with a crisis. So this kind of stuff can happen. Then hubs. Well, if your whole business model, you get all of this right, but then you're trying to reach people cold, one-on-one, as a stranger, you are working 10 times harder than you need to if you have the right hubs. The difference between you as a stranger saying, hey, what I've got might be a good idea for you versus a hub saying you absolutely need what this person's offering is substantial. And then with sharing means what are the tactics you use to get your stuff out there? If you pick the wrong tactic, it doesn't work in a few ways. One, let's say you are somebody who hates writing. You're just not good at it. You try to sit down, you're good on video, but you don't write. But a business coach says Substack. That's the thing for you. You got to write articles because they got that in their head. Well, you see how much time it takes you to do this thing that goes against your grain. It's just like, it feels unnatural. I don't know how to write this kind of stuff. So you're going to lose that way in terms of space. But also, you're not going to do it. You'll probably avoid it a lot because it doesn't come naturally to you. It's not a sustainable tactic for you. So you avoid it, but now you're broke. So now you need to hustle another way and you're just losing space. So I want to go over this that all of these things like this, you start with space. There's a kind of grand clearing out. You do some low hanging fruit cash flow things to bring in some money, but then it has to be maintained with all of these things. All of these things keep the spaciousness. If you start with a certain amount of space, you get your ethics in line, you have a very clear niche, a really lucid point of view, a simple, sustainable, satisfying business model, and you get out there with hubs and you find a way to share that actually works for you, it gets real easy. It's real smooth. So that's my sermon for today. I just wanted to share that. Um, yeah, it's so key. It just really hit me, the relationship between space and all the different levels.